If you're celebrating a special occasion or just love fine dining, you're in the right place. Come experience the crown jewel of South Point restaurants, Michael's Gourmet Room.
Welcome.
With over 600 different types of wines and magnificent dishes prepared tableside, you'll revel in the rich classic Vegas decor and the best black tie service in the world. This intimate gourmet room has earned accolades galore. Come to Michael's Gourmet Room for an unforgettable dining experience. Another famous restaurant is the Silverado Steakhouse, where you'll find the charm and service that discerning patrons require. From top quality steaks and chops to fresh seafood and desserts, you'll love the award-winning wine list and menu at Silverado Steakhouse. Steak lovers have even more options with primarily prime rib. Catering to hearty appetites, the menu features a variety of flavorful prime rib cuts, dry-aged to ensure tenderness, and then seasoned and slowly roasted. Although prime rib is our specialty, it's not the only thing on the menu. There's something for everyone. And if you're craving a taste of Italy, come experience delicious Italian cuisine and the attentive service at Don Vito's. Our culinary team starts with the freshest ingredients and transforms them into traditional favorites. And don't forget Italian desserts. Don Vito's. Savor the taste of Italy. Finally, if sushi is more your style, join us at the popular Zenshin Asian restaurant and sushi bar, where we're serving up the freshest sashimi, nigiri, and sushi rolls. And beyond the sushi, an exciting contemporary Asian cuisine menu, plus a variety of specialty drinks, Japanese and domestic beer, wine, and sake. Balance your hunger with Zenshin.
Welcome in at Sports by the Book on a Saturday morning. I'm Jeff Parles, happy to be with you as always. We got a lot to get to today. Don't worry, we'll get our Commanders, Eagles, Chiefs, Bills fix a little bit later. Brandon Kiley of ESPN 101 in St. Louis, also of Arrowhead Pride, SB Nation's site for the Kansas City Chiefs, will join me at 9 a.m. to break down what is another matchup between KC and Buffalo. Also, he's plenty of thoughts on the other game as well, Philadelphia and Washington, a good matchup, as we know, in the NFC. Third time around for those two teams. Right now, as we're looking at the numbers, the Washington Commanders on the road for the fourth consecutive week, third consecutive week in the postseason, are 6-point underdogs here behind us, and the Chiefs are 2. That's what we have right now. Entering the show here today, subject to change as always throughout the next 27 and a half hours for the Washington game and 32 hours or so for the Kansas City game. So there you go, over the next day plus. All right. We begin today with a cough, obviously, into the microphone, but we start with college hoops. Plenty of college hoops. Sean, is Lamar playing today? Lamar's playing today. You on Lamar today? No. Whoa. Drew Dog, we have to check it. We have to check our guy Sean. I mean, Lamar. We bet Lamar every single game. 10.5 against. Oh, that's East Texas A&M, who's the old Texas A&M Commerce. Okay, got it. I think you're still okay on that, for what it's worth. All right. In other news, let's start in Raleigh today. NC State and SMU. Weird college basketball scheduling today, where before the extra board, actually even including the extra board today, I don't know why there's only 3 games at noon Eastern today. Very weird scheduling. A lot of these games get going at a lot of 1 today. A lot of just stacked later in the day. There are a lot of good games, including, in my opinion, the 2 best teams in the country do battle in Auburn tonight. We'll get to Tennessee-Auburn later, and also a gigantic matchup in the Big 12 with Kansas, as you saw on your thumbnail, hosting Houston, and it looks like the people are betting the Jayhawks here this morning. All right, let's start in Raleigh. As I said, SMU, first year in the ACC, taking on an NC State team that has been super, super average so far this year. And quite frankly, For Kevin Keats is very fortunate that they had that miracle run to the Final Four a year ago, because he probably would have been out of a job if they had just lost in the ACC title or ACC conference tournament to Duke, or if they lost to Virginia or whoever it may have been in that tournament, and would not have his job. It'd probably be someone else there now. Now they host SMU, where Andy Enfield, of course, comes over from USC. SMU is a totally reasonable team. I don't think they're an NCAA tournament quality team at the moment. If you look at Joe Lunardi's bracketology, which was updated yesterday, SMU right now is team number 72. So on the outside looking in, probably after last night where Virginia Commonwealth beat St. Bonaventure's by 14, probably behind VCU. So probably team 73 entering today's action for SMU. 3 against the middling NC State team. I don't have a play here, but it would be a lean to take the 3 and the money line with the Wolfpack here. I think this is a good spot to go against SMU. Now, would have liked it if they had won earlier in the week instead of getting stomped by the Louisville Cardinals, who were probably on their way to the NCAA tournament. But at home, a bad loss at home earlier in the week to a pretty average Cal team, losing to Vodtech for NC State. Got to stop the bleeding here. So we would lean to NC State in this one. All right, former Big East matchup now in the ACC. Syracuse hosting Pitt. Syracuse is awful. Not a good basketball team this year. Pitt right now is team number 68, 67, 65 right now. Lunardi has them barely in the field, has them going to Dayton. Lunardi also has North Carolina in the field, which I don't think North Carolina deserves to be here. But that's a different discussion for a different time. Pitt is 8. I'm a little bit surprised that this number actually did not get bet higher than 8. It was 7.5 last night, now 8. I think that's all right. Everything's good here. The Syracuse team is just so bad, especially by Syracuse standards. They're not good at anything. They play a fast pace. They want you to play quick on offense, but their defense is not any good now. No more zone, of course, with Adrian Autry now as the head coach. But this is such a mediocre basketball team. Yeah, they did beat Notre Dame and Georgia Tech at home, so 2 middling ACC teams as well. But there's not a good team that Autry has. This feels right at 8 with Pitt. I'm a little bit surprised it didn't get bet higher, but boy, on the road at the Dome, even with how poor we have seen this Syracuse team play, it is still not the best of spots to lay that big of a number with Pitt. All right, let's go to the Dunk, the old Dunk. I know it's now the American Family Mutual Pavilion in Providence, Rhode Island in the Big East. Providence College hosting Georgetown here today, 12:30 Eastern start. Of course, the Ed Cooley Bowl, as we know. Kim English's squad has been a little bit of a disappointment this year. I expected them to be better, especially, look, I get it. Bryce Hopkins has only played 3 games this year because of injury. They are not the same team. Still expected them to be a little bit better, even without Hopkins for most of this year. They're coming off a close loss to Villanova last week, game they probably should have won on a Friday night. Georgetown is coming off of a huge win for them to stop the bleeding. They had lost 4 in a row, got a big win at Villanova on Monday this week. That was at the Pavilion on campus for Nova. But that was a big win for Ed Cooley's squad, which is obviously defense first and offense that is still middling, but a top 25 defense for Cooley. I think he's 1 year away from having a legitimate NCAA tournament team in D.C. yet again. But I like Providence at home, only laying 1. You can lay a minus 115 money line if you want to do it with the Friars. I think this is a good spot for Providence to get themselves right. They've been good at home. Their only home losses this year have come against 2 NCAA tournament teams in St. John's and Marquette. They've beaten everyone else they're supposed to beat at home. They have a good win against BYU as well earlier in the year. I do like them here today. Lay the minus 115, lay the 1 with the Providence Friars at home against Georgetown. All right, moving along. By the way, quickly, We'll mention this real quick. Indiana State, Northern Iowa like the over in that game, even up to 156. So that is a look as well. There it is right on your screen. Let's go to Columbia, South Carolina. Gamecocks had their hearts ripped out earlier in the week, a game they controlled all night long against a top-notch Florida Gator team, and they let it slip through their fingers to fall to 0-6 in the conference, 70-69 loss. An easy cover, but a loss nonetheless for the Gamecocks. They take on a Mississippi State team that lost earlier in the week on the road to Tennessee. Now, I'll just say this with the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. I think they are a legitimate 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. Right now, Lenardi has them as a 5 seed. Actually, a tough matchup against Bradley in round 1. But they're going to be a team in the SEC that I think struggles to play up, but is able to hold up against lower-end competition in the league. Now, granted, remember, the SEC is at an unprecedented level for this league. South Carolina is the worst team in the league. They're 80th in KenPom. Unbelievable league. Yeah, South Carolina can end up sub 100, but very likely that they're the only team that could end up sub 100 when it's all said and done. You look at how Mississippi State wants to play this year. They are playing, again, with Chris Jans now, fully stable as the head coach. They're playing a little bit faster this year. Now, South Carolina is a slower-paced team. KenPom has this game 140, by the way. The market has it at 138 on this total. There's some 139 out there as well. It was 140.5 and got pretty well clocked to the under early. Chris and company put those totals up around 5:30 this morning. By 5:45, this total had gone down 2 points here at the South Point. So I think that market move is right on the initial one, getting to the point where you probably can't play it. I think 139 is the bottom and that you can go on this total at 139 with Mississippi State and South Carolina under. All right, let's go to Madison Square Garden next. Rutgers taking on Michigan State. First Rutgers CBS regular season game in almost 40 years. Saw that yesterday from the Rutgers account. Michigan State is the best team in the Big Ten. I think you can fully start buying into them as a legitimate, I don't know about national title contender. I don't know if they're that good, but they are a clear Final Four caliber, deep second weekend team. Their only losses this year are to Kansas in the Champions Classic and Memphis in Maui. Again, they haven't, out of conference, they didn't have a true elite win. Their best non-con win was UNC, but that was a great win in East Lansing last week against Illinois, a game where all number dependent. Early numbers in Illinois came in, the late numbers came in on Sparty. Books got middled on that one. Now they take on a Rutgers team that is looked like they turned a little bit of a corner and then go to State College and lose to Penn State earlier in the week. Dylan Harper's still trying to fight through it. Had the flu, is still not 100% himself. This is a really difficult one because there is an 8 out there. I think 8 is reasonable if you want to take it with Rutgers here. This has been, by the way, a huge mover here at the South Point since it went up. Started at 5.5, got as high as 8, now 7.5. If you can get that 8 that's out there, which there is one, and if it goes back to 8 other places, I think you can justify taking it with the Scarlet Knights. There's enough talent to stay in this game. Yeah, I think if you're Rutgers, you'd much rather have this game at Jersey Mike's Arena in Piscataway. But this is still probably going to be a pro-Rutgers crowd at Madison Square Garden. At 8, I think you're good to take it with Rutgers in a tilted neutral site game in this one. All right, let's go to Middle America. Another New Jersey team is in Omaha to take on Creighton. The Blue Jays host Seton Hall. Seton Hall's really bad. Like, it is kind of flooring how bad Seton Hall has been this year. I understand their NIL is weak. They don't have enough talent on this team. I like Shaheen Holloway, who is still a good coach. He didn't forget how to coach. It's just that this roster, I'm kind of stunned that Seton Hall, especially an athletic program with one program that means something on a national scale, their basketball program couldn't find enough money to at least build out a reasonable roster. They are by margin the worst team in the Big East. Them and DePaul are the only sub-100 teams. Seton Hall is 173. They go on the road here to Creighton today, who has improved as the year's gone along. Winners of 4 in a row, including that big win in Hartford last weekend against UConn. So this open 16, the market has taken this down to 15. I still think you're okay on Seton Hall at 15. I wouldn't go much lower than that. Creighton is more than capable of winning this game by 20-plus points because Seton Hall's offense is just pitiful offense. I mean, again, that's just kind of floored that they win the NCAA. Let's be real. They should have been in the NCAA tournament last year. The Big East got totally hosed last year. Them and St. John's were clearly NCAA tournament teams that did not get in last year. They win the NIT, which I think is pretty good proof they deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. And they didn't put any money forward. Very bizarre from the NIL conglomerates and the donors to Seton Hall that they did not get a good enough team this year. And they're heading for a single-digit win season at this point. Be shocked if they won more than, they could get to 10. They could win another 3 conference games, but I don't think they're getting more than 10 wins. Brutal year for Shaheen Holloway and company, but I do like them today at plus 15. All right, Sean, we get to go to a fun one here in the CAA in Philadelphia. Drexel, the Dragons hosting Delaware. Yeah, baby. Hey, this is a regional rivalry, my friends. Drexel, quick turnaround for Drexel. They had to go to Boston. Both of these teams had quick turnarounds, actually. Drexel had to go to Boston. They lost earlier in the week to Northeastern by 9. Delaware was on Long Island. They get clocked by Hofstra. Now we get this game in Philly. Drexel wants to slow this game the heck down. Delaware wants to speed this game up. I'm going with the slowdown. I like Drexel minus the 5. I expect this game to be played more at Drexel's tempo, more so than Delaware's, which leads me to lay the points with the Dragons in this one. And look, I expected a little more of Drexel this year. Now, you look at their conference losses, other than the Northeastern loss this week, and then the ridiculous loss against the Camels, the Fighting Camels of Campbell. Their other 2 losses are to 2 of the better teams in the league. They lost to Towson in a coin flip game in overtime, and then Elon, who has been one of the better surprises this year in the CAA. Again, CAA full of surprises. Elon and William and Mary, 2 teams that have never been in the NCAA tournament, have a real shot of getting there. And then, of course, Charleston has been a power down there, even with Chris Mack now as the new head coach, still kicking there in that league. But we like Drexel minus the 5. All right, let's go to Tempe next. Arizona State taking on Iowa State. Clones put it on UCF earlier in the week after their first conference loss of the year where West Virginia got them. Arizona State went on the road and beat West Virginia earlier in this week. This end of 4-game slide. This total's too low. That's my take in this game. Iowa State wants to play as fast as they played in years. This is not the team of a year ago, which was a slow-tempo team, sub-200. This year, they're top 100. Earlier this week, they had an 80-possession game against Central Florida. Now, the question mark here is, will Arizona State be able to produce enough against, again, even though it's a quicker pace, a high-end defense, 7th in defense, 11th in offense for the Clones this year? But this feels like an overgame of 145. I thought this game should have came about 150. We're getting about 5 points. The market did play this game under, which I'm a little bit perplexed by. At other shops here at the South Point, it has not moved off of 145. I still think we're good there. I would go over 145. I'd even go over 145 and a half. I think you're comfortable there with Iowa State and Arizona State over on that one. All right, St. Louis and George Washington. The Revs of GW have struggled of late. They were one of the better surprises in the A-10 for a while, but they've lost 3 in a row, including a game against UMass earlier this week where they were not overly competitive against a pretty average Minutemen team. Now they take on SLU, who has found themselves, once they got out of non-con, they had a rough non-con. Robbie Avila dealt with injury. Didn't really beat anyone in non-con, but they've been good since they've gone into A10 play. Their only losses in Richmond against VCU is the class of the conference this year. But I do like the Revs in this game. Now that the Revs are a dog, you can take the even money on the money line. You can take the point if you want a little bit of a push out, even though I don't think that's the greatest of better. I'd rather just take the even money. But I will take GW. Take GW plus one even money on the Revs at home in this one against, again, a good SLU team, but a SLU team that I think is vulnerable here today in D.C. All right, Ivy League. Yeah, I know I'm skipping the good Ivy game here today because Princeton is in action. We're not going to talk about that game. They're in action against a good Cornell team, but we are going to talk about Brown. Yes, Brown, who upset said Cornell team earlier in the week, 4.5 against these Dartmouth Big Green squad. 4.5 is the number out there. Find the fours, lay the points with Brown here today. That would be the way that I would look at it here with the Bears at home against Dartmouth in this one at 4. All right, a little bit something different. Let's get into some higher quality games here. Let's go to Nashville next. Vanderbilt hosting Kentucky. Good game. Real good game here. Vandy, of course, last week, Memorial Gymnasium, always a weird place to play. They took out Tennessee last week at home. A huge win for Mark Byington and his squad, who, again, I think are NCAA tournament quality. Quite the turnaround quickly. They got beat by Alabama early in the week in a game that almost featured 200 points. That is going to be the thing with Alabama moving forward. Now they take on Kentucky. Now, here's the deal. The rule of thumb moving forward with SEC games involving Alabama or Kentucky, and you can throw Florida in there as well. They don't play as fast as Alabama or Kentucky do, or even Vanderbilt for that matter. But these totals are not high enough. It does not matter unless if we're getting numbers in the 180s. And even then, it didn't matter in Kentucky, Alabama last weekend. 166 is not high enough. 166.5, which is the current number out there, is not high enough. These two teams are unbelievably capable on offense, and they are more than willing to run all game long. I understand 166.5 in a game that's line 2. You need both teams well into the 80s. I get it. 84, 82 isn't enough here. I understand that. But this game will have more than enough possessions to get this game over. And Vandy is more than good enough offensively to hang with Kentucky here. So we're going to go over in this game. And even though I think Vandy is good enough to hang in this game, I'm surprised this number did not come a little bit higher. It would be a lean to Kentucky laying 2 in this one on the road. And again, a difficult place to play in Memorial Gymnasium. All right, let's go to Austin next. UT hosting Texas A&M. Boy, Texas A&M, what a win earlier in the week in Oxford. A game they did not lead until under a minute to go. They find a way. They get the big win. They beat finally a high-end team, a true high-end team in the conference. Now they get the rematch with Texas. These two teams met earlier in the month in College Station, and A&M put it on the horns. And, yeah, Texas won earlier in the week against my alma mater. A nice win for Rodney Terry and the Horns in a game that was played at Texas's pace there in the new building in the Moody Center in Austin. I am in the camp here that this is a wrong team favorite scenario. I understand why people are betting Texas. It's a brutal spot for A&M. It's a revenge spot for the Horns back at home, a team that beat them earlier in the year. But A&M just a lot better than Texas. It's just much better. And I'm concerned about Texas's ability to score the basketball in this game. Again, borderline top 50 offense, but still an A&M defense that is 6th. An A&M defense that last time these two teams played held Texas to 23 second-half points. I think the wrong team's favorite here. We'll take A&M on the money line, plus 105 in this one in the SEC. Quick hitters here, Arizona, Colorado. I don't have a play here, but I got to give Tommy Lloyd credit, which takes a lot for me to say that. Only one conference loss after a non-con slate where they were 4-5 through nine games. But they've really stabilized the ship safely. NCAA tournament team could play themselves up. Again, they're going to have cracks against Iowa State twice, Kansas and Houston, and Texas Tech a second time. Plenty of opportunities to move up the ladder. Colorado, to me, is the third worst team in that league. Good opportunity here to get fat and happy here for Arizona at home. And then the other one I want to hit real quickly, UNLV in New Mexico. Credit to Coach Kruger at UNLV. This was not a team that I expected too much out of, but UNLV, even with the ridiculous loss earlier in the week to Wyoming, has played a lot better. They had a good win against Utah State and a good win against San Diego State. It would only be a lean to the under in this game. New Mexico does want to play fast, but if UNLV is going to stay in, they're going to have to control the tempo here. But nothing too strong here with the Lobos laying 3 here in Vegas at Thomas and Mack later today. All right, let's go to Florida and Georgia. I'm a little surprised by the way this game's moved. Florida's up to 11.5, open 10.5. I thought the Bulldogs were reasonable at 10.5. Now that we're getting more, it would only be a play on Georgia, who just hasn't been quite the same over the last few weeks. Now, look. In the SEC, you're going to face stretches where you just play high-end team after high-end team. Now, here's the conference schedule so far for Georgia in 6 games. They played Ole Miss, legit top 20 team. They lost. They beat Kentucky, legit top 10 team to me. They beat Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma actually is the second worst team in the league when it's all said and done, even on a grade non-con. Tennessee, number 2 team in the country to me. Auburn, number 1 team in the country to me. Arkansas, desperate for a win at the time, needed it, finally got Cal on the board at Arkansas in the SEC. Now you take on Florida, who was very sluggish earlier in the week in their win against South Carolina. That's a lot of points. It's a lot of points to be getting. I know Ken Pom comes 11, but that is a lot of points to be getting with a good team that is really good on defense in Georgia. Also, by the way, this is Mike White Bull, of course. Mike White leaving Florida to go to Georgia 2 years ago. So we'll be on a dogs here. We'll take the dog and the dogs, both the same here. We'll take the 11.5 in this one with Georgia on the road at Florida. All right, Minnesota. They're hosting Oregon. I'm a little bit surprised by the way this number's moved. I thought Oregon would get bet. It's come the other way. Well, I guess Minnesota got bet initially. Now the Ducks are getting bet again up to 4.5. It was 5 overnight, 5.5 here at the South Point. If you see that flat 4 again, I would be okay laying the Ducks. Williams Arena is a weird place to play. Very old school place. Gophers, again, already picked off Michigan at home. They beat Iowa earlier in the week, so they're playing better basketball. But look, for Oregon, I think this is a good spot to get themselves after the win against Washington earlier in the week, continue getting themselves more right after that loss at home to Purdue, where the Boilers just clearly had the better of the play in that game. Butler and DePaul. Butler's 5.5 against the Blue Demons in this one. Number feels right to me. If you can get to 6.5, I think I consider taking DePaul, but this number feels right. With, again, 2 former Ohio State coaches doing battle here in this game, with Mata hosting Holtman in this one. In Orlando, Central Florida, 4 on the overnights, down to 3.5 now against TCU. Don't agree with the market on this one. Horned Frogs got a big win on the road last week in Waco. They then flipped around and got pretty well handled in the second half by Kansas. This is a good spot on Central Florida to me. Knights really got to put on them by Iowa State. They probably should have beat Houston last Saturday. They had the game controlled, but Houston found a way to win. But I like Central Florida. They're a better basketball team in this game, and they're at home. a good stop the bleeding spot here for UCF. And by the way, too, UCF has handled their business against teams they are better than in conference play. They're better than Arizona State. They beat them. They're better than Colorado. They beat them. They also have that big win in Lubbock, which stunned everyone earlier in the year. All right, Duke and Wake Forest. It's all over Duke so far in the market. 10.5 to 12. Now back to 11.5. I thought Wake was reasonable at 10.5. Definitely reasonable at the 11.5. At some point, Duke has to be tested in conference play. They're up to number one in KenPom. I don't think they're the best team in the country. I think they've just eviscerated this mediocre competition in the ACC to boost their numbers. Now, I'm not saying Duke isn't a legitimate title contender. They are. Beat Arizona in Tucson. They beat Auburn, the only team to beat Auburn so far this year. But Wake's playing really well. 6 straight wins. Their only losses this year are to real teams. They lost to Xavier, they lost to Florida, they lost to A&M, and they lost to Clemson. Those are all top 50 KenPom teams, all solid teams. They should be able to hang in this game at home in Winston-Salem. Not saying they're going to win, but they should be able to cover 11.5. We'll be on the Demon Deacons plus the 11.5 in that one. All right. We got more games to get to in a little bit, including the big boy ones here today. Houston, Kansas, Tennessee, and Auburn. We'll break those down in a little bit. We're going to take a quick detour to football after a quick break. Brandon Kiley will join me next of ESPN 101 in St. Louis. Plenty of NFL to talk about with BK when we get back. Sports by the Book on a Saturday morning.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back in at Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio here on a Saturday morning. I'm Jeff Parles, and now joining us, he's the co-host of BK and Ferraro on 101 ESPN in St. Louis. You hear him weekdays 11 to 2 Central Time. Doing some math, that's 9 a.m. starting out here on the West Coast. He also writes for and you hear him on podcasts as well at Arrowhead Pride, covering the Chiefs. One of my good friends in the business, and one of my good friends, period. Brandon Kiley joins us right now. BK, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff Parles. How are we doing today?
Good, buddy. It's always good to see you. It's always a fun time of year for you. At least since 2018, it's been a fun time of year for you, BK. Let's start with the Chiefs. Of course, trying to make the Super Bowl yet again, trying to win 3 in a row, would be the first one in Super Bowl era to do it. And they get a familiar foe here in Buffalo. And look, man, you've watched all these playoff games, every single ounce of it. We're sitting at 2 right now at KC in this one here at the South Point. What are your keys here? What are your keys in this game with, again, Buffalo trying to knock off the King, which they have been unable to do in the postseason?
Yeah, you ready for some cliches? Because that's ultimately what this game's going to come down to, is some cliches. It's the turnover margin, man. This is every football game ever, but even more so when these two teams meet. The Chiefs and the Bills have combined for exactly 1 turnover in their past 8 games. That's not like overall 8 games between the two. No. Over the past 8 weeks of football, they have played 16 games combined, and they have turned the football over 1 time. The Buffalo Bills have a top 5 turnover margin in the NFL over the past 30 years. The Chiefs have an NFL record, 8 consecutive games without a turnover. It's going to be determined by the turnover margin, man. And that's the case for most playoff games. Teams that win the turnover margin are 8-0 this year, but even more so in this one. So it's super boring analysis, but it's the truth. The last game that these two played, Patrick Mahomes on his first pass attempt was picked off, and that ultimately kind of set the stage for what was about to happen. I think that's going to be the story of this one. If you told me I could see one stat before the game, it would be, hey, who turns the ball over quickest? And then ultimately who wins the turnover margin? That's the team that's going to win this football game.
Well, and you brought it up. I mean, this is a generational season from Buffalo turnover margin wise. Mm-hmm. And look, when Kansas City has played clean football this year, they've been mostly unbeatable anyway, but they've been, even though it has not been the prettiest, but I mean, look, it's, if there is a turnover in this game, and we saw last week, forget the ridiculous kicking game from Houston. The Chiefs were just the better team. Lamar Jackson's 2 turnovers in the first half and Mark Andrews' fumble in the fourth quarter. That's the only reason this is not Baltimore in this game instead of Kansas City. So I'm 100% with you on everything you said there, BK.
That's the thing. Like, people are talking about the refs, right? They're talking about all of the nonsense that takes place during these games that doesn't actually end up affecting the bottom line. What does affect the bottom line, and who is playing now in championship weekend, who were the teams that took care of the football? And I think it is symbolic, Jeff, of where we're at with the NFL right now. Like, you look at the teams that remain, other than Washington, they're boring. They're boring football teams. They take care of the ball. They play ball control. They play pretty solid defensively. And those are the teams that are having success right now. And I don't think that is by accident. I think defenses have forced them into playing this style of football. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen used to be the 2 most exciting quarterbacks in the league to watch, and they still have their moments. But you look at Josh Allen's playoff stats so far, man, it's boring. It's like a couple 100 yards through the air, 50 on the ground, and they find a way to win with this smash mouth style of football. That's what's winning in 2024. And I don't expect, it's 2025 now, I suppose. And I don't expect that to change on Sunday.
You know, it's so interesting you bring up that point. And you and I have talked about this off the air probably thousands of times over the last few months. But it just is like the beginning of this year, it was established the run was back earlier this year. And you now look at these teams that are left. Philadelphia, obviously, historic run season with Barkley, a run-first quarterback in Jalen Hurts. What makes Jaden Daniels unique on top of being insanely accurate and insanely poised as a rookie? He has an amazing job of using his legs. And Allen, I still think even after all these years, Buffalo's best offensive play is Josh Allen running the football. Mm-hmm. And look, even though Mahomes doesn't want to do it, we've seen plenty of unbelievable plays with Patrick's legs through the years. But this is, you're right, though. It's so strange to say about teams quarterbacked by Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, but they're playing such a, hey, we're gonna make you beat yourselves. We're not gonna beat ourselves in order to get to this spot. And BK just looking a little bit further into this game, I'm concerned about Buffalo's defense in this game. That's the biggest thing for me. Where last week, look, Baltimore moved the ball at will. They just, again, shot themselves in the foot with those 3 turnovers. This has been, I guess that you have to say, this has been the weakest offense in the Mahomes era in Kansas City. But when the game's been on the line, Mahomes has been the best quarterback in the NFL in the fourth quarter this year. And Travis Kelce looked like Travis Kelce last week.
I think last year's team was a little worse offensively, so we can have our quibbles there.
Sure.
But the difference is this year they don't have an all-time great defense to be able to make up for it, right? If you're looking overall, I think it's fair to say this is the weakest collection overall that the Chiefs have been in the Mahomes era. They don't have a dominant unit on either side of the football, and that's just not something we've been able to say thus far. It's either been amazing offense or last year, I believe, the best defense in the NFL, and that's not the case right now. I am curious about the Buffalo Bills defensively as well. I think the Chiefs are going to get theirs. And I think last week you saw some of the answers that they can come up with. I am really curious to see, like, what is their plan this week? What are they trying to attack defensively? Because they have some injuries on that side of the ball with Buffalo. They're not the stoutest against the run typically, although they held up better than I anticipated against the Ravens. I think the Chiefs are going to go back to the plan that they've had for really the last 6 weeks with Joe Thuney at left tackle. that's quick passing, right? It's going to be a lot of getting Travis Kelce over the middle. They have some of these jet sweeps that they can do with Xavier Worthy. I bet you Hollywood Brown is more involved this week. I think the Chiefs have some answers on that side of the ball. I think that what this is going to come down to, Jeff, is it the weakest link that ends up winning out, or is it the stars that win out? Because I think the Chiefs have the weakest links that are going to be playing in this game. At slot corner, Shamari Connor, and at left guard with Caliendo starting this week. Ed Oliver could have his way with him. Or is it the stars that show out, right? Does Travis Kelce go out there and have a huge game? Does Chris Jones have a huge game? Does Trent McDuffie announce his presence? Because I think outside of Josh Allen, like, who is the second biggest star on the Buffalo Bills right now, Jeff, that can live up to that kind of expectations with the Kelce's, the Jones, the McDuffies of the world? I'm not sure they necessarily have one other than maybe Deion Dawkins, and that's a left tackle.
You know, my mind went right to James Cook, because James Cook has been really good in this postseason, and part of the reason that Buffalo has been this version of themselves this year is because you mentioned it, the smash mouth football, the run for it is so amazing. Just like a year and a half ago when this was a turnover machine laden offense, and now they're like, oh, they're going to protect the ball, they're going to smash in the mouth. It's not a coincidence that Buffalo has been the best version of themselves when they've made the game simpler for Josh Allen. I don't think there's any doubt that, and that goes all on Joe Brady. BK, all right, who are we taking in this game? I think I know where you're going here, but what ends up being the final score here in this one with KC and Buffalo?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a close one. I do think Kansas City pulls it out. I think it's by about 3 points, so I will take them to cover. I mean, do I feel great about it? No. I think the line and the number in terms of the total are kind of right on, but I'll take Kansas City minus the points. Give me them like 26-23, somewhere right around that range. I think it's I think there are 8 possessions for each team in this game, and ultimately it comes down to which team gets a turnover and honestly probably a turnover on downs to finish it out.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. We're almost right on that total there, BK, at 48. Almost right there. The slightest of all overs and now one. All right, the first game of the weekend, Washington and Philadelphia. This is such an interesting game for a lot of reasons. You and I have talked about this, and I'm not convinced that Jalen Hurts is 100%, even though he came off the injury report yesterday. And look, this is a third time around. This is a Washington team that, yes, has history against them. We've never seen a team win 4 consecutive road games in order to get to the Super Bowl, including the final week of the regular season and 3 games in the playoffs. We've never seen a rookie quarterback make the Super Bowl. So you got 2 big things going against the Commanders. But if Jalen Hurts is not 100%, BK, this is a totally different handicap, because what makes Jalen Hurts is his ability to move. And we saw when it was taken away at the end of the year last year, an Eagles season completely imploded.
You know, I've been in on the Commanders this postseason.
Oh, I know.
I had them going to the NFC Championship. We were on this ride together.
We were.
And we both believed in them because I thought they had really good matchups the first 2 rounds. Like, the style of game that the Commanders wants to play, they want to win 35-31. They want to go up and down. They want to play this track meet style of football. And the Buccaneers and the Lions are not only happy to go ahead and do that with you, that is also their preferred style of play right now. The Eagles are the opposite of that, man. The Eagles want to play a game that makes everybody want to throw their remote at their television as they're watching the football game. And it works for them. It's ugly. It's annoying. It's frustrating. And you leave the game saying, I'm not even sure that's a good football team. And guess what? They just keep racking up the wins. And I think that's what's going to happen again this week. And nobody's going to enjoy watching it, but I think the Eagles are just the better football team right now, man. I think the Commanders are 1, maybe 2 years away from being the team that they really want to be. That defense has some serious issues on the ground. Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, ran wild on them last week. If not for the 4 or 5 turnovers, the Lions did everything they wanted to do offensively. They had a great game plan in that one. They just turned the ball over too often. I think the Eagles will take care of the football better. I do think they end up not only winning this game, but covering the spread as well. So I really like the Eagles side on this one, unfortunately.
For spread-wise, again, I want to see if this number can pop up a little bit more. We saw 6.5 earlier in the week. I don't think we're ever seeing 7. I'll have my full thoughts tomorrow morning. I really want to take Washington at least to cover. I think Philly wins. I'm with you on that, which then, BK, since you have a Philly-Kansas City second time in 3 years matchup this go around in New Orleans, what would your early thoughts be on that potential matchup?
Yeah, I think whoever's coming out of the AFC will beat whoever comes out of the NFC. I think the AFC this year had the 3 best teams in the NFL, and it came down to which team ends up coming out of that side of the conference. So I will take the Chiefs in that one. I think they would probably win by 7 points or so, win by a touchdown. I just think they're a better overall team than the Eagles. I do not trust Jalen Hurts going up against a Steve Spagnuolo defense. I know last time around he had a decent amount of success, especially with his legs. I do not think that will continue this time around. I think you would have a better game plan for him. Saquon would scare the hell out of me, take the overs on his receiving yardage in that game. But I do think that Spags would have a really good game plan, and the Chiefs would find a way to come out with about a touchdown win in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I field goal win feels about right. Look at, by the way, is Kansas City 1-point favorites right now here at the South Point against the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, that last Super Bowl between them was as tight can be. Also, it's probably the best game Jalen Hurts played in his NFL career too, and it still wasn't enough in that one against Kansas City 2 years ago in Arizona. He's Brandon Kiley. Get him on the tweets at BK Sports Talk. ESPN 101 in St. Louis, Arrowhead Pride for all of his Chiefs content as well. BK, pleasure, man. Thank you as always. I know you'll be hearing from me later today, probably.
You betcha, man. Hey, any of the slot players on Buffalo, take their overs in this one. Talk to you later, Jeff.
All right. Thank you, BK. Brandon Kiley, everyone. All right. Let's take a quick minute. When we get back, more college hoops, and I think Vinny Magliulo will stop in as well. Sports by the Book here on a Saturday morning.
South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back in. It is Sports by the Book here on a Saturday morning. Jeff Parles here. Happy to be with you as always. All right, more college hoops. Ready for it, Sean? Still not betting Lamar? Man, disappointing. Let's go to Corvallis. West Coast Conference, good matchup here. Santa Clara, who, of course, stunned Gonzaga a week ago, and then I thought was a good spot to go against them with Wazoo, and they just put it on Wazoo earlier this week. Santa Clara now goes to Corvallis to take on Oregon State, who had a nice win against Pepperdine earlier in the week after losing to San Francisco, but they also upset Gonzaga last week as well. I like the Beavers here. I like the Santa Clara team. They play a really fun style. Herb Sendek is a perfectly solid coach. They have really good guard play, but this is a tough place to play. In Corvallis at Gill Coliseum. It's an Oregon State team that I actually think is pretty reasonable. Quite frankly, if they didn't lose that game to Loyola Marymount, I actually think they'd be squarely on the bubble right now. But because of that one loss, they're way on the outside looking. WCC, by the way, the WCC conference tournament this year here in Vegas is going to be excellent because as opposed to usually having 2.5 teams that are capable of winning the conference, there are 4 legitimate possibilities this year And the two of them are, well, even San Francisco, so I guess 5. But these two teams are capable as well. But we're taking the Beavs. We're laying the 2.5 with Oregon State in that one. All right, let's go to the Octagon of Doom. That's Manhattan, Kansas. Kansas State taking on West Virginia. West Virginia was pretty well handled earlier this week at home by Arizona State in one of the weirder results. They get ranked, and West Virginia just gets crushed right out of the gate. Kansas State has been a monster disappointment. They've whiffed in the portal. They're 1-6 in conference play. They're 7-11 overall. But I like this spot for Jerome Tang and company at home. Was 1, now it's 2. Tread a little carefully as this number continues to go up. But Kansas State at home, tough place to play. Not fully buying into West Virginia yet, even with that really high-end defense. Still have questions about their offense, but we do like Kansas State in this game, even at 2 in this one against the Mountaineers. All right, keeping it in the Midwest. Now we continue to get some good games here. Missouri hosting Ole Miss. What a good game here. 2 ranked teams. Market has bet Mizzou here. If we get a little bit higher, I would actually go against the alma mater. If we get to 4, I think I'd take Ole Miss. This screams very tight game. Two teams that I thought Ole Miss was going to be improved. I didn't expect them to be as good as they've been. Mizzou has been a complete surprise of them being a legitimate NCAA tournament team, which is what they are right now as a 7 projected by Lenardi. Ole Miss right now projected as a 5, but it would only be a look to the dog here in this one. This should be a very close game in Como here this afternoon. All right. Now we get into a few just mega games. Well, one mega game here, and then we'll get the other mega game later. Kansas, Houston. Boy, what a game. What a game this is. Between, to me, even with the strength of the Big 12, these are still top 3 teams in that league. I think Iowa State's the best one in the league, actually. So the market has played Kansas this morning from 2.5 last night now to 1.5 here at the South Point. There's a bunch of 1 in the market as well. You're giving me Kansas as a home dog. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it 100 times out of 100. Now, Houston, who I always think the Cougars get overrated by Ken Pom. Just because their defense is always elite under Kelvin Sampson. And their defense, look, last time out they held Utah to a hearty 36 points. But their defense has really held down the Big 12 opponents so far this year. But this is a huge step up in class for Houston. Houston has played 2 top 20 teams this year. They're 0-2. Auburn and Alabama both beat them. Now, yes, that Alabama game is an overtime game, but they still lost the game. They also lost to San Diego State on a neutral as well here in Vegas. San Diego State's pretty average. This is a huge step up in class for Houston. Now, as we've seen in the past, now look, last year, Houston went on the road at a fog, and Kansas handled them pretty easily in a similar-ish spot. Actually, Kansas was much worse last year, at least to me at that time, than they are now. But we'll take the Jayhawks on the money line here. This is just an opportunity you can't pass up. They're at home. They're the better basketball team. They're the better basketball team here. We'll take KU on the money line here in this one against Houston. To the CAA again. Elon and Charleston. Yeah, there we go. We talked about Elon earlier. One of the bigger surprises right now in this conference. A legitimate NCAA tournament caliber team. To me, there are 3 teams in this league that are NCAA caliber. Obviously, they'll only get 1 bid. And 2 of them are playing in this game. Elon, 3.5 and 4 are the numbers that are out there. Right now, Elon is 4 across the board. Still good. You can lay it. I like 3.5 a little better, but you can lay it a 4 with Elon at home against College of Charleston. Good spot here for Elon to send Charleston to their 2nd consecutive loss. Just a much better home team. Undefeated at home so far this year for the Phoenix of Elon. Florida State, Stanford. I like the Cardinal at home, 4.5. I'm just not buying this Florida State team. There's also a coaching advantage for Stanford. Kyle Smith is the better coach in this game. Florida State did lose earlier in the week to Cal. This is another one, home road splits, much better home team than road team for Leonard Hamilton and company. We'll take the California two-step. We'll take Stanford laying the 4.5 over Florida State in this one. Let's hit a few more here. Oh, this is a good one. Merrimack and Fairfield. Yeah, there we go. Merrimack, a nice come-from-behind win earlier this week in Jersey City against St. Peter's. In that game, I'm not a mathematician, but when you hold your opponent to 10 points in the second half, you're probably going to win a lot of the time.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. 48-37. Yeah, I think the under got there in that game on Thursday. Merrimack is an interesting team out of the MAAC, the MAC with 2 A's. Unbelievable defense, horrendous on offense. They take on a Fairfield team that is horrendous on defense and bad on offense. We'll lay the 4 on the road with the Warriors of Merrimack in that one against Fairfield. All right, let's bring him in. We got a few more college hoops games to get to here with our guy Vinny Magliulo.
Good morning, Jeffrey. Good stuff, buddy. Yeah, not just focusing on the Power Six.
All over the place. Got to do it.
That's good. That's how you're going to make money.
Yeah.
Betting in college basketball. When you talk to professional bettors who follow it, that's their bread and butter.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So follow, and again, for a lot of folks out there say, well, how can you follow it? You know what? You can follow a conference. You don't have to follow all 365 teams. You can follow a conference and zero in on it. Make your numbers. Pay attention to injuries, trends. Right? I mean, coaching as well. Home and road splits are really important too in college basketball. So you brought up the Elon game, College of Charleston. A good example of that, Jeff. Good, well done.
Good game. Good game, too.
Mm-hmm.
I got a few more I want to hit with you.
Okay, buddy.
And I, of course, naturally, the first game I get to hit with you is a game that's lined, at least last night, as a 25-point line last night. But now this morning is still there. And that's Gonzaga, who...
The Zags.
This is not your normal Gonzaga team here, Vinny. The last week, they call out, they lose in Corvallis, which felt like a pretty tough spot regardless. I took Oregon State plus the points. Oregon State actually won a game in overtime. Mm-hmm. And then they flip around and they get beat at home by Santa Clara. Again, two teams that are good.
You liked Santa Clara in that game, if I recall.
Against Gonzaga, Alex loved the over. I do like Santa Clara as well. But I didn't like them outright. I can tell you that. But here you go. Look, this is a weird, and it's a 25-point line. I understand it. This is a weird one because Gonzaga didn't play at all this week.
They laid 23 and they laid 24.
Oh, I know.
So,
I know. You see 25, it's like, well, that's a lot of points for a home team,
especially on the road. Yeah, right. For Gonzaga, I hear you the way they've been playing, but the fact that they've had about a week to work some things out. Yeah, listen, and especially now, right? Gonzaga and has been for a while. They're the hunted everywhere they go, right? And so even when they play another Power 5 conference school, they're still highly marked, and they're going to get everybody's best effort. So. Can you lay 25 here, especially after it's moved up 2 or 3 points? That's a challenge. It's at your peril.
I kind of want to take the 25, but knowing if I do that, Gonzaga's going to win this game 105-74, which, by the way, would be a good over at 161 if that happened, yes. By the way. St. Mary's is actually undefeated in conference play, Vinny. Randy Bennett just keeps on chugging along. They're 6 on the road at Wazoo. Wazoo got pretty well toasted earlier in the week by Santa Clara.
Yeah.
But St. Mary's, it's a weird spot here for St. Mary's. Undefeated in the league. Next week, St. Mary's, well, actually, you know what? This is actually a pretty wild stretch for St. Mary's. They beat San Francisco earlier in the week.
Tough.
Good team.
Yep.
Their stretch, Wazoo on the road, at Santa Clara, Gonzaga for the first time, at San Francisco, at Oregon State, Santa Clara, Wazoo, Portland, and then Gonzaga again in the kennel.
Tough road. It's a tough road, but a very disciplined team, as we know. They'll defend, real good fundamentals on offense, and that's the reason they're undefeated and that they're at the top of the conference right now, right? I mean, when you look at it, so this is a good spot, but daunting, tough to be on the road as well. But you know what? It's a great setup for the conference tournament, Jeff, and then the NCAA tournament.
Well, for this guy, I was saying that before, like the WCC, like it was all right. Gonzaga and St. Mary's are going to play in the title game unless if St. Mary's gets picked off by someone.
Somebody gets,
because Gonzaga was always there. But this year, it's like, look, you got.
Might be the other way this year.
Well, this year it's a scenario saying right? It might actually be able to get tickets for under face value because the Gonzaga
here
fans.
In town.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's like Gonzaga, St. Mary's, Wazoo, Oregon State, San Francisco, Santa Clara. Like all those teams are legitimately very solid teams this year.
Should be a very good WCC conference tournament here in Las Vegas in March, no doubt.
Xavier in Connecticut here real quick. Vinny, the two-time defending champs are not the same team. Obviously, they've dealt with injury.
Well, injury and graduation.
Yeah, right? Look, it's hard to win. It's hard to win 2 in a row. It's darn near impossible to win 3 in a row.
Right.
But Xavier, who really, boy, had a really good shot to win at St. John's earlier this week, somehow didn't even cover the number, which was one of the more gut-wrenching non-coverage.
Good second half and
a nice overtime scenario
by the Johnnies.
But this is 1.5 here, Vinny, with Xavier at home. Again, Huskies not the same team this year.
But they took the 2.
Yep, makes sense.
With UConn, Jeff, and a little bit of the money line as well. So not a real surprise because you're not going to see UConn as an underdog too often.
No,
and so Xavier. Tough. This will be another tough setting, and they'll be sky high to play the Huskies here.
It would only be UConn for me on the money line. That'd be the only way I'd look. Plus a nickel. That'd be the only way to look at it for me. I was not anticipating bringing this game up for a very long time, but I just want to ask you from a bookmaker perspective, and it's not the most attractive game, but it's Miami and Cal. But the Canes, it is very rare in January that you can say a basketball team has given up. But since they fired Larinaga.
Well, I think he resigned.
Excuse me, right? You're right. He retired, but let's read the tea leaves. You're right. He resigned. Vinny, they have not played an ACC game within double figures. Or excuse me, in single figures. All their games have been double figures. Earlier this week, they lost 88-51 to Stanford. Last week, they gave SMU 117 points. Look, I know Cal's not any good, and the market has actually been super, super active on this game.
Yeah, they laid 9.5. They laid 10.
Yeah, look, it's just one of those where it is so rare you see a basketball team just quit this early in the season. But Miami, every time you look at them, they look like they have quit.
Well, I think let's look at what happened here, right? So Miami goes to the Final Four 2 years ago.
Yep.
And immediately after they lost in the semifinals, Jeff, the 8 players entered a transfer portal. I mean, and here's Jim Larinaga, who's thinking, well, listen, we made it to the Final Four, right? They had a great ACC tournament, had a good run to get to the Final Four. And I think this is a byproduct of NIL, of the transfer portal, and everything that's going on. And we've seen it with even younger coaches. Jay Wright is probably the greatest example, right, where this is a completely different environment. And I think Jim Larinaga realized from that moment on, he stuck out last year. He just couldn't deal with it anymore in terms of what it. So when you talk about a team quitting or not giving out their best effort, I mean, what you have here are players looking to to transfer already, right? The season's still on, and they know they're not going to be here next year because they don't want to be here. So that's what we're seeing here. And for a coach like Jim Larinaga, who was an excellent coach, to deal with that way and just throw his hands up and say that's enough. And now the players are saying it too. Anybody else that was committed, they're just not anymore. And I think that's the play against this Hurricane team.
Yeah, it's just been on defense. They are 340th in KenPom. 340.
And dropping.
Yeah, out of 364. That's real bad with Miami. All right, LSU, Alabama. I just want to ask you real quick on this because I mentioned this earlier with Kentucky and Vandy, because Kentucky and Bama seem to be in a league at this point where not only do they play fast,
two high scoring teams in the country, right?
They are unbelievably efficient on offense. And earlier this week, we saw a Bama Vanderbilt game that was totaled, I think it was 166, I think was what it was. Right. Game went zooming over when it was all said and done. Today, Alabama plays LSU, and it's 167. And I'll just ask you this. Last week, we saw Alabama and Kentucky was totaled 178.5. When zooming over. How do you handle these teams that are so good on offense and play this ridiculous breakneck pace?
Well, you could see we're trying to, we just keep raising. I mean, this total started at 165, and it's going to keep climbing too, Jeff. I mean, by the way, Alabama's up a couple of points off the opener too, now up to 18 here at South Point. So, look, you can't over adjust either, right? Because again, as I mentioned earlier about professional bettors who are looking at the non-Power 5 conferences, right? They're going to look to see where there's maybe some value with unders too, right? I mean, and any professional will tell you out there, you've got to get out of the Power 5 conferences and look for price values there. Well, you've also got to look at unders as well. So, again, for us, we post it, we'll adjust it. We've adjusted it by about 4 or 5 points, and we'll just keep adjusting and book it accordingly. But you're also moving numbers fast, too. It's not like you're moving totals from, one. I mean, this total, again, is up to 167. So it's not a 165.5 to 166. Sometimes you're moving at a 1.5. Yep. Because that's very respected money for the most part as well.
Well, and again, first off, another point also, the SEC is outrageously good this year.
It's the best conference.
It's the best conference in the country, and I think by margin this year, and that's no disrespect to the Big 12, the Big 10. They're both really good leagues. The SEC might legitimately get 13 teams in the NCAA tournament this year.
They may very well do it.
LSU is not one of those expected tournament teams, but boy, 167. I'm going to bet this. So I heard. Going to bet it over again, more likely than not, Vinny. Game of the day, the game of the day where College Game Day was today, Tennessee and Auburn. Tennessee-Auburn, which is just, what a basketball game. By the way, Vinny, these are power-rated teams for me. Power-rated number 1, Auburn. Power-rated number 2, Tennessee for me. Janae Broome is expected to play, which was not expected until this morning.
Well, I did hear a report. He did practice yesterday. He's not 100%. He's going to try to warm up. It's a game time decision. Yeah. Auburn's, I think they're undefeated without him, by the way. He had the shoulder injury, and now the ankle. Yeah. So I think they're 3-0 without him.
Auburn has not missed a beat without him. Yeah. Obviously, they played that tight game against Georgia last weekend, which a big rivalry game, and Georgia's pretty darn good themselves. Good. They hammered Mississippi State. They had that ridiculous game at South Carolina. That was very, very low scoring and low tempo.
Which is what South Carolina wanted it to be.
They did exactly what they wanted to do. But, Vinny, even with Broome in, with him not 100%, look, could Auburn decimate Tennessee because Auburn is that good and it's a home game? Sure. Yeah. But, boy, you see almost 7 points with Tennessee against anyone this year. That's pretty. I know they did. They laid the 5.
The 6, they laid 5 on the overnight. Yeah. And so with the anticipation of Broome playing, and it looks like I would say he's probably 60% a go, maybe 70%. He'll give it a go. But the thing about it, Jeff, is you're right. Tennessee, who will try to defend. Here's the thing, though, too. Auburn, and by virtue of them being undefeated without him, really shows their depth. I mean, they go 8-9 deep, and so their depth has been on full display this year. And so, but this is going to be a terrific game. It's 5:30 Pacific. I'm glad it's going to be the feature college game of the day in terms of betting interest. So, on a terrific card, as you can see, we got almost 150 games again.
Again, it's this in in Kansas and Houston, which we mentioned earlier, which they've been all over the Jayhawks.
They did take the Jayhawks at home. I mean, here's the key, right? It's Houston's defense, right? They're up there as well after a little bit of maybe call it slip or look. They lost a few games early, but they've corrected things. And Houston is good, not as deep, I don't think, as Auburn, let's say, but their defense is outstanding.
Yeah, for me, it's the NCAA tournament is 2 months from now. We'll be right in the thick of everything for the tournament. But boy, it feels like the possibilities of teams to win the title, especially after last year, where it felt like it was a UConn coronation all year for the most part. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different ballgame this year. As good as Auburn is, as good as Duke is, as good as Tennessee is, it feels like there's a collection of maybe about 8 to 12 teams that have a realistic shot of winning the title this year.
You look at a team like Iowa State, even though they tripped up at Morgantown, which is kind of strange, right? You saw the Mountaineers win that game, and then they lose at home at Arizona State. How did that happen? But you're right, Jeff. I mean, we've heard it more so in the last decade in particular, right? It's wide open, and it is. I mean, UConn returning just about everybody last year off a title run, and things they did get it done. But look, you certainly have your top 5, 8. You have a pretty good idea who those top. You could probably interchange the top 3 seeds regionally right now, even. But who's going to be playing the best a month from now and has health, right? And that's going to certainly play into it and be a factor.
It's going to be a fun run to the finish line here this year. Vinny, real quick, just quick check-in on the football games for tomorrow.
Just terrific business right now. The Eagles holding steady at 6 here at South Point, 47 on the total. And as we talked about with Chris Andrews yesterday, you got the Bills total now going up. It's up to 48.5, and the Chiefs as 2-point favorites. So good business, lots of props. And certainly going to be, we'll have the Super Bowl posted after the second game, so you'll be able to bet the Super Bowl, barring something crazy injury-wise.
Well, I mean, look, if there's an injury in either of those games that's significant, we'll have to. You'll have to hold off.
The anticipation is typically we get the Super Bowl posted right after the second game, which tomorrow will be the Bills-Chiefs.
Be a fun day tomorrow.
Yes, indeed.
Say the very least. We will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Myself, Alex White, will get you ready for the AFC and NFC championship games. Vinny will make an appearance as well on the show tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. right here at the South Point studio on Sports by the Book. Sean, Drew Dog, thank you. Thank you to everyone who watched today. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again tomorrow right here, Sports by the Book, 9 a.m. at the South Point.